Morning, folks. Thanks for joining. This is obviously Sumo Logic's webinar. We're going to get started in just a minute. Good morning. Thanks for joining. We're going to get started in just a minute or so. Good morning, everyone. So we're just about to make a start. I think that's more or less the last of the attendees just joining. Just give them a few more minutes. There's a few more still joining. Right, shall we make a start? So yeah, good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining. Thanks for being on time. My name is Alex Challis. Obviously, I'm going to be your host for this morning's live Sumo Logic Cloud SIEM webinar. Just very quick housekeeping before we make a start. It is a live webinar. It is being recorded, and we will take some questions towards the end. If you do have a question while I'm speaking, please feel free to click the Q&A button. You should find that in your webinar window. Please make a note of your question, and then I'll try to get through as many as we can right at the end of the webinar. We've got 30 minutes allocated to the webinar this morning, and I'm going to do my best to try and get you folks off to your next meeting on time. So just very quickly, let me just begin with a quick overview of who we are. We are Sumo Logic, and we've built a continuous intelligence platform for both observability and security. And the continuous intelligence platform, or our customers, I should say, are analyzing an incredible exabyte of data every single day. So we have more than 100,000 users using the platform across the globe. Using our continuous intelligence platform, Sumo Logic offers a broad range of solutions that you see on the slide here, ranging from audit and compliance all the way to our Cloud SIEM solution. Today, I'm going to be zeroing in and focusing on our Cloud SIEM solution, which includes our Cloud SIEM Enterprise add-on module. Check out Sumo Logic's website webinar page if you want to register for one of the other live demos we have this week. So tomorrow we have a demo on observability. And then on Thursday, we also have a demo of our Cloud SIEM solution as well. So yeah, please feel free to, as I said, visit the webinar page and register for one of those other live demos as well if you're interested. So really just to talk, I guess, about some of the challenges that you guys face in your daily roles as security analysts. So digital transformation and the recent growth in organizations migrating to the cloud has created new challenges with security blind spots and legacy security tools. And the fact is that traditional SIEMs were not built for the cloud. And because of this, it results in more threat visibility gaps than ever before. So speaking of the existing tools, many SOC teams are also tired of the slow and inefficient manual workflows that they've been having to endure. And with the recent shifts in the threat landscape, new attack surfaces brought about because of obviously cloud adoption, security analysts simply need a bit of help with speeding up investigations and response times. Another big challenge shown on the right here is that security teams are spending just way too much time and resources on chasing down low priority security alerts and the ever-present false positives. So all of the increasing alerts and the noise is continuing to burn out members of security operations with so-called alert fatigue, obviously being very well documented across the industry. And basically, this has made it clear to CISOs and security operations directors that it's really no longer a human scale problem. Because you can't hire your way out of the situation, right? There's simply not enough skilled analysts available to take care of all of the work that we need people to do. So the good news is our cloud or SimoLogic's Cloud SIEM solution offers easy to use cloud native collection, threat detection, and obviously it's designed and targeted at you guys, the security professionals, security operations, security analysts. So we help your SOC team eliminate those security blind spots. And we do this by correlating threats across all of your on-premise systems, if you still have them. Many organizations don't. Public cloud, obviously everyone's moving workloads to the public cloud. And the reality for many established organizations is that often means a hybrid cloud environment, so a mixture of on-premise and cloud as well, public or private cloud. So secondly, we're also able to help you speed up your investigations and combat some of that lost time that you've spent driving a manual workflow with those legacy security operations tools and SIEMs. And then finally, we help our customers, cut through the noise by performing an automatic triage and prioritization of the security alerts. And obviously, we're doing this to try and bubble up the most risky threats to your organization. So obviously, your SOC can be dealing with them. Right. This example here is actually taken from one of our customers, or they're a customer now, they were a prospect at the time. This really just demonstrates how by using Cloud SIEM, you can cut through the noise, and we'll really understand a little bit more from the numbers here by drilling down and into what the alert fatigue challenge is, and see how Cloud SIEM really helped here. So this is, as I said, a real world example. This is actually a global manufacturer who sent more than 10 billion log lines to Sumo Logic during a 45-day proof of value evaluation. And our Cloud SIEM automatically ingested and normalized these log lines into what we call records, more of that a bit later. And in total, from those normalized records, we correlated and fired just short of 10 million signals. So 9.8 million, what we call signals. These are the correlations. Other vendors might call them notables, or correlations, or maybe just simply alerts. But the fact is that most traditional SIEMs use correlation rules to get to this point, while other solutions try to increase alert fidelity further. They require substantial rule stacking and tuning, maybe machine learning and risk scoring. But in general, the bottom line is all of the solutions stop right here using this rules-based correlation, because they don't really capture unknown threat patterns. And ultimately, security teams need to filter the remaining alerts, and they do this by throwing level 1 analysts at the problem of alert triage. But even that can still result in errors and other issues as well, as obviously the time-old issue of time and taking too much precious time to perform that triage. So with Sumo Logic's Cloud SIEM, we uniquely provide a real automation of the security analyst's workflow. So our insight engine is an adaptable signal clustering algorithm, which is implemented as a heuristic-based artificial reasoning system. And what that means is every time a rule fires, it creates a signal with a unique signature, a reference to an entity, and a severity score. And then the insight engine also provides a powerful look back in time, evaluating all signals associated with an entity for up to the last 30 days. And when our algorithm determines the aggregated risk surpasses a threshold, it generates an insight, which is a set of information that's been optimized to accelerate alert triage. And I'll show you in just a second in the demo what that insight is and how it's presented. These insights represent a sophisticated layer of analysis because our insight engine allows Cloud SIEM to detect advanced threats and those low and slow attacks, which obviously we all understand are commonly used by threat actors today, as well as obviously the old-fashioned high-speed direct threats. So on top of this, I mentioned earlier, we ingest and process an exabyte of data every day. So we offer an exabyte cloud scale, and that dramatically improves the signal to noise ratio. In fact, this particular organization witnessed a signal to insight ratio of just under 57,000 to 1. So that was leading to 175 insights, of which they validated 65 of those as actual incidents over the course of their 45-day POV. Before this, the customer also struggled with a 98% false positive rate, despite having multiple tools and services, looking at the wealth of data that they were collecting, and also in this particular case working with an MSP vendor to try and reduce that noise as well. But with Cloud SIEM, Sumo Logic enabled them to centralize all of their data collection, consolidate the tools that they were using, and at the same time drastically reduce their false positive rate to a mere 9%. So needless to say, they became a Sumo Logic customer, and we'll show you in just a second the goodness that they're currently enjoying with Sumo Logic. So I'm just going to flip over now to the demo. And this is what we call our head-up display. This is the main entry screen into Cloud SIEM, and this is really all purely about situational awareness. So we have the Insight Radar in the middle, and the Insight Radar is tracking and charting the 3 values in the top left-hand corner here: records, signals, and insights. In this particular case, over a 24-hour period. We have the records on the outside. So these are the normalized logs. Every SIEM does this. Essentially, when logs are collected, they're normalized into a consistent schema to allow logs from different sources to be correlated and compared and correlated as in essence. So this is the log volume or the record volume around the outside. The histogram in the middle here represents the signals that are firing from that record data, from that normalized log data that we call records. And then finally, these magic insights appear in the middle here with these little colored triangles, and obviously the color represents the state of the insight. But the key things to understand here is we're taking, as I said, these records, we're running them through a correlation engine, just like legacy SIEMs and other SIEMs do. And historically, correlation has always been about data reduction. But unfortunately, as we've come to find over time, really that using correlation or rules-based correlation alone really hasn't kept up in terms of performing that data reduction. The good news is that we provide with Sumo Logic's Cloud SIEM this concept of insight. So we're taking the data reduction one step further. So we're taking these, what we call signals, the correlations, and we're feeding them through an additional engine which correlates these signals, the detections, against asset over a long period of time. So typically up to 30 days. And if we look over at the right-hand side here, we can see this is the most recent insight activity. So at the bottom here, we have a summary of actions taken by other analysts within our demo SOC. But here at the top, we can see insight 18651, which involves some persistence. In this particular case, the insight is formed from two signals, so two detections. We can see those detections here on the crosshair. So the first was a match with a file hash indicator of compromise against some data that was fed to us from CrowdStrike. And so these two signals have been correlated against this particular asset. In this case, the asset's like a DNS host name, but entities might be, for example, usernames or IP addresses. In fact, you can choose any aspects of the normalized record schema for representing your insights or for clustering your insights around. So yeah, this is a little summary card. What we're going to do is we're going to dive in and we're going to take a look at these 10 insights that have been surfaced in the last 24 hours. So first thing that you can see here is obviously a Kanban board, which you can use perhaps as a SOC manager to review the new insights that the system's firing. So this is the automatic alert triage that's happening within Cloud SIEM to bubble up these particular insights. And it might be, as I said, that you want to go ahead and allocate specific insights as a SOC manager to different teams to be working on. You can see the phases that each insight is taken through across the top. Of course, this can be customized, but the idea here really is to mimic the phases that you would typically take an incident through as part of your standard SOC operations process. Again, these are obviously all of the summaries, card formats. In these, you see obviously the number, so insights obviously driving a workflow, a bit like a ticketing system. The name of the insight itself is derived from MITRE ATT&CK tactics. And we've already seen, this was the one that we saw on the head-up display just a few minutes ago. You have the entity, in this particular case, sorry, it wasn't a host name, it was a username, ITO11016, and then some summary about the insight itself. So the so-called dwell time of the particular insight. So this is the time between the first signal that fired and then the last signal that fired and actually caused the insight to be generated. You see a summary of the number of signals, the severity, the overall severity of the insight. And then in some cases, you'll see also this global confidence score. So this is a great way that Sumo Logic's customers can benefit from the actions of our other customers. So we have a machine learning engine that looks at all of our Cloud SIEM customers' data and the actions that analysts are taking as they close out insights. And we're doing this with a view to detect collections of signals that are likely to be true positives. And the higher the global confidence score, obviously, the higher the system believes the true positiveness of the finding that it has there. So what we're going to do is let's dive in and take a look in more detail at insight 18645 here. As we can see, it's already in progress. It's already been assigned for attention from analysts by the SOC manager. So let's dive in and begin to understand what we're seeing here. So, sorry, let me just check on timing. Okay, fine on time. Okay, so yeah, this is all of the detail of the insight. So the insight represents automated alert triage. What we've done, or what the system's done here, is it's trawled through all of the detections over a 30-day period, and it's collected together detections around Deb Smith. And as I mouse over, you can see there's a little pop-up here which helps the analyst understand in a little bit more detail who Deb Smith is. So this is inventory data, in this case taken obviously from Active Directory, but we can also take it from other types of inventories, Google Workplace, for example, EC2 inventories, those types of inventory sources. So this is all about, again, enriching what the analyst sees, providing them some more context for their investigation. As I'm now going to take charge of this investigation, I should probably go ahead and assign it to myself. You can allocate your insights based on team or to individuals. You choose, obviously, depending on the typically on the size of your SOC. If when you're doing your investigation, you want to go ahead and perhaps drive an external workflow, you can do that using this actions button here. You might do that perhaps to enrich part of the information that you're seeing in the insight, or perhaps just to drive an external workflow. Maybe you want to send a notification out to Slack or Microsoft Teams or something. The other things that you can do, obviously the severity, which you see here, I mentioned earlier, you can perhaps, as you begin your investigation, you realize that actually this isn't a low severity incident or insight. We want to increase the severity, so you can go ahead and override the system's calculated severity. You have the global confidence score, as I mentioned earlier. This is Sumo Logic's, using Sumo Logic's machine learning engine to try and identify insights that are most threatening, true positives to the environment. And then you're also able to, for example, send this particular insight out to Cloud SIEM, so Sumo Logic's Cloud SIEM, and create an incident in Cloud SIEM. And you might do that, for example, to either enrich the data that you're seeing, perhaps do some comparisons with across different threat intel type feeds, or maybe you just doing it to automate the whole response and remediation process. And quite simply, what you do is you go ahead and you select one of these templates that you see, and then that causes that associated playbook to run in the Cloud SIEM. Okay, the other information that you're seeing here is related to just some basic statistics around the generation of the insight. So the dwell time I mentioned earlier, the time between the first signal and the last signal that generated the insight, obviously when the insight was created, and other statistics. And we're keeping these really obviously to help calculate SOC KPIs, things like mean time to detect, respond, and remediate. As we scroll down a little bit further, the other information I see is we can see this insight has been tagged with the MITRE attack tactic of execution. Perhaps if I'm new to the SOC role, not sure exactly what MITRE attack tactic of execution is, you can go ahead and open the corresponding MITRE attack page to describe that. In addition to the MITRE attack tactic, as you can see here, we've also labeled technique as well. And these tactics and techniques all come from the underlying signals associated with this particular insight. The other tags that you see, so developer and user type here, are being inherited from the entity. So we have our entire entity or asset, essentially subsystem, built into the product under the entities tab here. This enables you to obviously look at the data from an entity's perspective, so from a user or a systems perspective, but also it allows you to record some of that inventory information that you saw earlier around the user, and also do other things like weight particular assets with a criticality weighting factor, or just simply add some additional context that you can obviously see we have here. So we have a user who's a developer basically, and we're learning that, or the system's tagging that from the underlying entity database. And then finally, obviously, if you're responding to incidents, it's good to keep your team up to date. So you go ahead and just say in this particular case, I'm investigating, and then my colleagues now know that I'm taking ownership of this particular insight. So the insight details. So the main thing that you see in the center of the screen here are all of the details related to this particular insight. As we saw from the statistics, essentially what we're doing here is we're aggregating 3 unique signals. As we can see, one's a Z-scalar event, one's a threat intel hit based on a domain name, and then finally we have a finding from one of our EDR tools here, Sentinel-1. Across the top here, you have what we call the insight timeline. So this is very valuable for an analyst to understand the progression of the incident over time. So each of the little icons that you see here, you can mouse over, you'll get a little pop-up of what the particular signal name is. Here, as we can see, as is fairly typical within incidents or cyber incidents nowadays, we have some action fairly early on and then a period of quietness. Often, if a threat actor's being really low and slow, that might go over several days or maybe several weeks. And this is one of the reasons, again, we're using insights to do this extended look back over many days of time. But as we can see, as I said, fairly typical, a couple of events, threatening events, and then a period of quietness, and then we have the threat actor coming back at the end here, and well, we'll wait and see what they were doing. But hopefully you get some good understanding, at least the 50,000 foot view from the insight timeline. So let's dive in and take a look at a few of these signals just to conclude the demo. So basically we're able to provide just a summarized view that we can see here, or if you click on the plus, what it does is it brings up a view which shows you fields which have actually been favorited from the underlying signal. So just again, just another way of kind of unwrapping the layers and providing further detail. As you can see here from this particular Z-scalar event, some of the things we're doing is obviously extracting the IPs, the action, the URLs involved. And in this example here, we're also enriching the URL. So we're also labeling it with entropy, as you can see here. We're also extracting out obviously the FQDN and also the root domain. In some cases, we also label the Alexa ranking and what's the final? Oh yeah, and then also we can perform some DGA analysis as well. But yeah, obviously the whole idea here is to enrich the data that you're seeing. If you want to look at the detail of the signal, you can follow the hyperlink, and this is now allowing us to step through each of the individual signals across the timeline here using obviously these little selection controls at the top here. So I've now actually selected all the way through to the final signal that made up this particular insight, this Sentinel-1. Well, the signal name tells it all there, right? A malicious keylogger detected. So this is actually the name of the signal and the description that you see here, which is obviously labeling both the host name and the IP, as well as the expression matched from the rule engine is all clearly available for the analysts to understand. If you want to go ahead and look at the rule, you can follow the hyperlink here. In the rule editor itself, you can duplicate the rule. Perhaps if you want to modify it, use it as a template for a new rule. You can attach rule tuning expressions. So when you're dealing with obviously misfiring signals, or maybe so-called false positive, or just ones that you don't want to know about, you can assign a rule tuning expression. And then all of the detail of the underlying record that triggered the signal is available. You have the parsed sections at the top here. Each of the stars represent the favorited fields that we saw in the summary. And then one of the really lovely things that Cloud SIEM does is we also preserve, when you're using structured data, in this example here, this is obviously the original data was in JSON format. And nowadays, you know, these structured data formats contain a lot of implicit information, which other SIEMs often force you to parse out. But as you can see here, we maintain all of the original field names, which is just really valuable. If I took this to obviously a Sentinel-1 admin, and they looked at the data. This should be fairly familiar to what they're seeing in the tools that they use to manage Sentinel-1. So obviously, once I've finished my my investigation, the final thing to do is really just to close out the insight. This is very important for helping the system learn from analysts' actions so that it can bubble up more threatening true positives with a higher global confidence score. So this is what helps drive this here, as obviously the analyst labeling whether the particular insight has been investigated and found to be a false positive or some other reason. So obviously very important step at the end of the process. Very good. So I'm going to switch back to the presentation now. Let me see. There we go. And really just we're coming towards the end of it here, and I will get to your questions in just a second. I've obviously been talking about Cloud SIEM. What I haven't really said is that we're a cloud native application built on top of a multi-tenanted platform which runs within AWS. We're obviously able to ingest data from any type of public, private cloud or on-premise environment. But we have, the important thing is we have deployments across all of the regions that you see on the slide. And this global presence enables us to deliver, obviously, first of all, low latency to where your data is stored, along with helping you to adhere to your local data residency and other types of regulatory requirements as well. Good. Okay, so I did see there were a couple of questions that you'd submitted in the chat here. So thanks very much for submitting your questions. If we don't have time to get through them all, please accept my apologies. We're coming up against time here. Let's have a see here. Will we get the recording after the session? That is a great question. I believe my colleague does send out a link to the recording after the session. So thank you very much for that. What else do we have down here? So can insight actions be automated based on the current step in workflow, e.g. send Slack notification automatically after status is changed to in progress? Yes, this absolutely can be done. All of the essentially the actions that are taken, obviously to normalize, to create the records in the first place, but also to trigger the signals and also to trigger the insights. All of this is fed back to the underlying data lake platform, and you can slice and dice that or use the other Sumo logic integrations to obviously to feed that data out and that audit of what's happening within Cloud SIEM out to other platforms. And then the final question was, can Cloud SIEM also work with other SOAR products? Absolutely, we can. Obviously, our integration is tightest with our own Cloud SIEM product, but we have out-of-the-box integrations with all of the market-leading SOAR platforms out there. So, thank you very much for your questions. It has been some great questions today, and that really brings us towards, or not towards the end. That is the end, very much the end of today's presentation. Thank you very much for your time, and yeah, I wish you a very good rest of the day. And oh, I've posted the wrong message in there, but yes, there was a final closing message, which here we go. Let me get the right one for you. Here we go, just with a couple of links on it. If you wanted some further information, or you wanted to follow up with some people, you can either hit our public Slack channel or send us an email. But yeah, we'd obviously love to for you to get in contact with us, and for us to have a follow-up discussion about your specific needs. But thank you very much for your time today, and I'm Alex Challis. It's been a pleasure. Enjoy the rest of today. Thank you. Bye-bye.